Really excited to be here. We've had a great year last year. Looking forward to another one coming up. What I have planned for you now is we want to do a little show and tell, which is I'll get it started very quickly with product highlights of our developer platform. What are priorities that we launched last year? What our focus is, and then I'll get our team up here to give you demo of the products. You can actually see and feel it for yourself. And then we have a nice panel planned for you as well. My name is Ketan Kittur. I head product management for Intuit Developer Group. I've been in Intuit for a year and a half. It's been a fun ride so far. So you've heard this message multiple times today in various forums. We are in the midst of a transition to the cloud. 40% of the businesses today are in the cloud. We expect that number to more than double over the next 5 years. And what happens because of this, and what we are seeing as we talk to our customers, is it creates a lot of efficiencies as well. The complex processes can be deployed very quickly. Things that used to take months and weeks can now be deployed in a matter of hours. Just to give you an example, we had a hackathon over the last couple days. One of the winners, they created a buy now button that a small business could embed in their site, literally in a matter of minutes. This is possible in the cloud. And that button can not just take orders, but it quickly reflects updates into QuickBooks. I mean, if you look at how complex that workflow is and how quickly a small business can adopt that and get going with that, I mean, the possibilities are endless. So we've seen that happen. Another thing with the research that we commissioned that we saw is financial management is at the center of this activity. A small business spends up to 4 hours a day, many times, sort of managing the books, invoices, payments, also doing CRM activity, all important tasks that they have to start managing. You've heard multiple times that, especially in Avi's talk today, that the number of apps that a business used to use, say 3, 4, 5 years back, were 1 to 2 apps. Now we are seeing around 3 to 4 apps, and we expect that number to be around 8 to 9 apps within the next 4 to 5 years, right? So what does it really mean running a business on using multiple apps, right? What we have learned based on our interactions with small businesses is small businesses are unique. Their workflows are unique. Their needs are unique. Based on the industry or the category that they serve, their needs are even more unique. For example, product-based businesses are different than project-based businesses, than membership businesses, than appointment-based businesses, than non-profits, and so on. And then even within those verticals, small businesses have different needs, right? So let me give you an example of what this really means from an apps perspective, and more importantly, for you as a developer, and what this opportunity is all about, and what we are doing about it, right? So an example here is a product-based business. These are generally the functional areas that the business cares about, right? Taking orders, tracking inventory, selling the product, making sure that you pay your employees, your bills, and then essentially drawing insights, reporting from your business, right? What we have seen is small businesses use multiple apps to run these specialized functions, right? And that's how they run the business. What we have seen in terms of feedback is our businesses are telling us, our customers are telling us, it's not just enough for them to use these apps, but they want these apps to work together. What that means is they want data to flow seamlessly between one app to another one. I'll give you an example. If your sales are increasing, you want to make sure that your inventory software, your order management software, and your reporting software, Insight software, is all in sync so you can take the right business decisions and grow your business. If they are not, then obviously there are tons of inefficiencies built into your business, okay? What we are doing is, the other part of this is that you need to have your accounting updated as well. And that's something that many of these apps are already doing. So from a small business perspective, you use an app, it's integrated with QuickBooks, it now syncs seamlessly through QuickBooks into others, the data is updated in the other apps, and your business is now running smoothly. And that's what we have seen businesses strive for as they move towards the cloud. What this means to us, specifically to the Intuit Developer Group, is we strive to make the integrations of these apps, developers building these apps, seamless into QuickBooks. So we want to grow that platform. We want to grow those APIs, make them as flexible as possible to support the nuanced workflow requirements of these multiple product verticals that I talked about earlier, so that you can go after the opportunity that you're going after and your customers benefit while doing it as well. So this is how we are tackling this problem. Avi mentioned this in the morning, is we basically boil it down to core benefits for you as developers that we can serve. And it's a math equation, right? I call it a return on investment. Your return is how can you grow your business and what we can do to help you. And then the other one is how you can actually maximize your investment. That is, how can you be efficient in developing your app and integrating that app with QuickBooks and syncing it across other apps so that you can solve your customer problems well. And I'll give you some quick highlights on what we've been doing over the last year on both these dimensions and benefits. So what we've been hearing from you over the last few years is, for you to be successful in delivering awesome experiences quickly, you care about a few things. And all of these areas are extremely important, right? You want to make sure that you have a rich platform, a rich API set that tackles and supports multiple and different workflows. You want to have access to SDKs. You want to have access to rich documentations, sample code, so you can reference and get going quickly. You also want to grow your business into new countries, launch globally. That is a big theme. For those of you who attended yesterday, we showed you what our global opportunity looks like. QuickBooks is growing roughly 20% outside the US as well. But it's not easy to just take your app and list it in another country in apps.com and be done with it. Going global means, our BD lead uses the term glocal, which basically means you need to understand local requirements in those countries that you're launching, compliance requirements, making sure that you have the right sort of targeting in those countries as well. So your workflows may even change in those countries based on compliance and so on. So we have those APIs for you, and you may need to take care of that. You've been asking for those things as well. Last but not least, support and community. I mean, as app developers, you want that, right? You want to make sure that if you're stuck on any point, you have quick access and you get going with it, right? So these are the things that we've heard that help you be more efficient, and we've been making progress on these areas. Our APIs today, QBO APIs, are global. We've launched in UK, Australia, Canada, India, and other countries. We also launched global sandboxes. What this basically means is you now have a sandbox with live data that is relevant to those countries, so you can actually test your app within those countries and simulate that experience, test it, make it bulletproof before you actually open it up and go live in that country. So you have that security that your customers will really love that integration with QuickBooks before you go live. We've also launched improvements to our documentation. We have more sample code available there for popular integration patterns with QuickBooks. For example, if you're in the retail business or you're accepting payments, we have that sample code that you can refer to, and that will make your life easier. You can learn more about it. We strive to make sure that our SDKs are up to date with platform updates that we launch as well. And last but not least, help is just a click away. We just launched a developer hub where you have access to a community, your community, and then we have Laurie's team here, developer relations, who are actively supporting you with your issues as well. Our goal here in this team is essentially to raise and continue to raise the bar on developer engagement. Right? We are here because of you. We are in it together. So your feedback is important to us. And the way we measure our success here on the product side is to make sure that these numbers keep going up. For example, our API call volume. It's a very technical metric, but I love it. It's 340 million API calls a month. What basically that means is small businesses who are using apps make that many API calls on our system. And it's more than doubled over the last 6 months, more than quadrupled over the last year. So if you look at the acceptance of our small business community, QBO community, to use third-party apps on top of QBO, there is tremendous, tremendous appreciation of that and usage of that. And that just keeps getting higher and higher over time. I expect that number to be in the thousands next year, hopefully. 30,000 sandboxes issued over the last year. That means the tools that we are providing to you to use and test your apps are working. And you're giving us, by the way, a ton of feedback. When we first launched it, you gave us a lot of feedback. We took that feedback, improved it, and even took it global. So now that Sandbox is global, we have thousands of SDK downloads, and now we have a thriving community of developers as well. So that's one aspect of the developer benefit I talked about, how we can help you develop your app and integrate that app easily within our product. The other one is about, you once develop an app, how can your app shine in the market? How can customers actually find that app, right? And this is the concept, what we call right for me apps. So let's take the example of Jack Foreman here, our customer, Sirius XM. And one of the things he says out here in our interview with him is, help me find the app that is relevant for me. If you remember, the data point I mentioned earlier is SMBs are unique, right? Their requirements are unique. So not one size fits all. So they are probably looking for, based on their business type, very unique solutions. They're because their problems are unique, right? So it is our job to help them find the apps very, very quickly. And we have put this audacious goal up there, which is to say that we want to help them find apps in literally a minute. And the way we are going about doing it is we are working on personalization to help solve that problem. And then there are other experiences, but I'll talk about this first. What this basically means is, based on machine learning, for example, we'll be able to identify, and we can identify the type of business category that you fit in as an SMB. We also know the popular apps based on usage for that SMB, and then we basically have a propensity model to recommend those apps so that there is higher ability for that SMB, for that app to be relevant to the SMB, hence they use it, there is higher conversion, right? While we solve this problem for small businesses, I think what is really interesting is we are actually helping you as developers be more successful as well. What we are doing essentially is, if you guys saw the panel in the morning, one of the things that the panelists said that we as a platform company have to ensure that we don't play favorites, right? So our goal out here is to make sure that we marry the best app with the best customer. And by doing that, all the apps, all the developers have a level playing field. If you have the best app, the best reviews, customers love your product, your app is going to shine. It's going to create more qualified leads for you, higher conversion, higher usage, higher LTV for you as a company as well. And that's what we keep doing. Couple other points. One thing that we have started doing with the personalization experiences is we have today 2 properties, if you may, where we help our small businesses discover apps. One of them is our web store, which is apps.com, and then the other one is the apps tab within QBO. What we are also working on is working through different access points within QBO, the product itself, to recommend apps that are more relevant to our customers. And that way, if your app is one of those apps, you will get recommended there as well. In the group next door, which is talking on the business track, we actually rolled out today a new partner program. And if you are in one of those higher partner categories, your app could even show up in what we call the first time use, which means it's easy for a user to connect as they set up their QBO as well. So what we are striving for here is doing everything possible in our means to make sure that you get as many qualified leads resulting in conversions through different access points within product, outside product, logged in state, logged out state, to make sure that you're successful. We launched a few other experiences that are illustrated there. Connect My Apps. What we also found is many of our customers show up in our properties where they already use apps, and all they're looking for is quickly connecting it to QBO. So we make that very easy for them to discover and get going. We also launched many categories, so it makes it easy to discover and connect your apps, and we keep doing more on this as well. A year in the making. We delivered a lot of product last year on both these dimensions, both on the grow your business benefit as well as delivering awesome experiences as well. I'll just highlight a few of them. We launched a new app store. We made it global last year. We launched personalization experiences, the one that I talked about earlier. We also launched enhanced search categories that help you get qualified leads. On the platform side of things, we launched global sandboxes. Our APIs, both the accounting API and payments API, we keep making improvements. And some of the improvement categories there are we made additions to make it global, so multi-currency and so on get supported. We also added some fixes that you recommended. Payments, we added wallet capability, for example. So we are listening to you and making sure that we add as many use cases as possible so you can support your diverse customer base going forward. And because of these capabilities, we made sure that SMBs are using this product, and we've seen a 5-fold increase in the last couple of years using this. But I'll take a pause now, and I'll actually have the team show you some of these developments that we have launched over the last year. So it's less talk and more show. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And now I'll welcome Jared, who heads our developer relations, and Mehul from our product management team to give the demo.
Anyone here from the hackathon? I have no prizes to give out, and you guys drank all the beer, so I hope the demo is good enough.
Hello. Okay. I'll just give Jared a couple of minutes to set up. You good?
We're good?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Mehul Asher. I'm the product manager for the developer experience team. And this is...
Hi, I'm Jared Keneally. I'm the group manager for the developer relations team at Intuit.
Okay. So for the purpose of this demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set myself up. I'll pretend to be the CEO, the developer, the product manager of a company called Salt and Pepper CRM. Okay. And I'm going to give Jared all the context on why I'm here. By the way, Jared has gracefully accepted to help me just navigate the waters, understand more about apps. So I'm just going to switch roles now. Jared, thank you very much for meeting me. I recently talked to a few customers, and they started using my app. I have a good customer base, but a lot of my customers are spending about 2 hours a week syncing customer data, syncing vendor data between the two systems, so my app and QuickBooks Online. And they told me about Apps.com. They told me about QuickBooks Online. So is there, like, just walk me through the tools, some resources that I can know more about so that I can build out the app, if that makes sense for me.
Great. Thanks for the context, and I'll take you through kind of the developer.intuit.com portal and the developer experience. And we break it down, the developer lifecycle, into 4 easy parts. So I can walk you through each one of those and how we help you through each step of the way, all the way to getting your app onto apps.com.
Perfect. I'm just going to step closer so I can see what you're doing.
Okay. So we'll start off with getting started on the Intuit Developer Portal. And we kind of break down the developer lifecycle into 4 areas: explore, create, develop, and then release. And for each one of those areas, we provide you with various tools and documentation to get you, through each of the way, all the way to apps.com. Okay. So we'll start off talking a little bit about exploring our APIs. So we have multiple different APIs on the platform. The first one is QuickBooks Online Accounting, which is what you want to talk about, but I'll just show you the others that we have available. So we also have a payments API, so you can accept payments within your application. And we also integrate with customer financial information, should you need that as well. Okay. But we'll focus on QuickBooks Online Accounting for the purpose of this. Okay. So as part of exploring, a couple things that you want to check out. So first, every developer who signs up on developer.intuit.com gets a QuickBooks Online Sandbox provision for you automatically as soon as you log in.
Okay.
And then we provide some tools to interact with that. So I'll start by showing you the Sandbox and exactly what's available there.
So is this like a real QuickBooks Online company? What is this?
Yep, it's an exact replica of QuickBooks Online, but it's specifically built for development purposes. And it also comes complete with sample data. So you don't have to worry about inserting data, and you can immediately start interacting with that sandbox.
Okay.
And I don't know if any of you saw any of the demos yesterday at the hackathon, but every single person who got on stage to pitch was using their sandbox. So it's a great tool. It helps you get started really quickly.
And you said it has data, right? So I don't have to spend time populating it,
Exactly.
the company file.
Let's go check
Okay.
that out. Additionally, the QuickBooks APIs work globally, but we also allow you to get a sandbox in 5 of the geographic areas that we put all of our support behind.
Okay,
But they do
nice.
work globally.
Okay, perfect.
So here's an instance of QuickBooks Online. This is my sandbox, and you can see there's plenty of data already in here. And since you mentioned customers and vendors, let's go take a look at some of those vendors.
Okay, love it. You got data there. Okay.
So you can see Bob's Burger Joint, Books by Bessie. So there's lots of sample data in here. You can start interacting with it right away. And the way that you interact with it is through the API Explorer. And I'll show you exactly how that tool works. This tool is a way to browse every single API that we have today for the QuickBooks Online API and connect to your sandbox. And it will allow you to execute any query, any create, read, or update right from the browser without actually having to write any code. And you can see here that the company that's currently selected is the sandbox that was just created for me. Additionally, if you had other global sandboxes, they'd show there as well. So you can pick and choose which one you want to use.
And it's got a bunch of objects here, so I imagine, okay, it talks to a lot more.
Yeah,
Okay.
so let's check out vendors because that's definitely what you're interested in. So you can see here the normal operations, create, read, update, and I'll just show you what it's like to query for the vendors that are in that sandbox. So we'll use a simple query similar to SQL, and we'll select all the vendors from that sandbox.
So do we see our Bob's Burger Joint? If you keyed in the,
Maybe
doesn't look like you got your SQL right.
Give me one sec. I know. So let's try it again.
That's a count.
Select star from vendor. I really mean it this time.
Is there a,
Touchy, touchy. All right.
All right.
There we go. So as you can see here, and I'll zoom in on this a little bit, you can actually see this is the sample data directly from the QuickBooks Online sandbox that was just created for you, and there's Bob's Burger Joint.
okay. So like it, I don't have to write any code to get, at least just learn how this thing works. And is there more you want
Yeah,
to show
exactly.
me?
So you were able to query your sandbox, you were able to test out the APIs, and it's only been a couple minutes. So let's just try adding one really quick. If you don't know what the default request is, we'll insert it for you, and we'll try this. Add this vendor to the sandbox. It was successful.
So what's the name?
It is John's Cakes.
Okay,
So let's go
look for
check
it.
out inside of vendors, inside of our sandbox. And we'll refresh this page, and we'll go see John's Cakes is now added.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome.
So that kind of gets you through the explore part of the process, right? Once you're done with that, you really want to start getting going, creating your application. So I'll show you what that looks like. So, because I knew you were coming, I created an app,
Thank you.
and you create your application, and you get a set of keys, which is for OAuth, and you get your consumer key and secret. Once you have that, you can now start checking out our sample code, you can start using our SDKs, but that's really where you start getting going in the actual writing of your code. So we provide sample applications and sample code specifically for OAuth in a lot of different languages. So if you look up here in our tools section, we've got lots of different languages, and I'm a .NET guy, so we'll go check out the .NET code.
Okay.
The one thing we've always had problems with, developers always have some confusion around how OAuth works. So we provide you with an OAuth sample in every language that we can think of. So everything we have is available in GitHub, and it's as straightforward as going in, editing your configuration of your sample file, changing the consumer key and secret, which is what we just saw in my newly created application. Swap that out, and we can run a sample app. So let's try it out.
So while you get this set up, OAuth is it's how I sync my data into QuickBooks. Like I need some permissions. Is that what it's all about?
OAuth is the authentication and authorization model for allowing a customer allowing your app to insert or read-write data to their QuickBooks company file.
Okay.
So we're going to cut and paste my consumer key and secret into my code, and then we're going to run. And then this brings up another point. So we also have a lot of widgets available for you, right? The less code you have to write, the less code you have to write with OAuth, the better for you, and the quicker you'll get going through development. So this is what we call our Connect to QuickBooks widget. It's a widget that you drop onto your page, and you would display that to your customers who want to connect to QuickBooks. They'll come along, they'll click on it, they'll log into QuickBooks Online, and then you're connected, and you can start making API calls. So I'll just give you a really quick demo of what a developer might go through just to try this out. And it's only been a couple minutes, right? We download from GitHub, and we get going.
So this means I can spend more time on my app building my business logic instead of worrying about just the small details.
Absolutely. Focus on what you're good at, which is building your app and managing your customers, and don't worry about OAuth. Let us take care of that for you. So you can see here we've got our access token and secret. That's the keys to the kingdom. Now you can talk to the APIs. Perfect.
Awesome. So what else do I need to know about the create part?
That takes us through the creation of your app. Now let's get into what it's really like to build. So there's a couple things we do to support you along the way, and there's a couple tools that you should take a look at when you're building your app. So the first thing is we provide you with a full SDK for the QuickBooks API in .NET, Java, and PHP. It's fully supported by Intuit. And the reason you want to take a look at that is we wrap the REST API. We provide you with the HTTP wrappers, logging, all this code that you're going to have to write anyway. We already done it for you. So you'll probably save about 40% of your development time doing this. So it's worth checking out, and it'll get you jump-started and going a lot faster.
Yeah, I mean, I use SDKs all the time, so this is awesome. And you said how many languages is supported? You said 5?
So we've got 3 officially supported by Intuit, but we have a lot of contributions from open source and from our developer community. So on GitHub, there's lots of samples. There are other SDKs and other languages that are provided by the community.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about supporting you once you get going. So Ketan mentioned earlier we've got the Developer Hub, and this is kind of where you can find our calendar of events, any training that might be going on. You can check out our blog and subscribe to it, any press or news that's going on. We have meetups all throughout the country that if we happen to be in your neck of the woods, you can stop by and chat with us. So definitely check out the Hub. You can see what's going on and maybe meet up with us somewhere.
Cool.
The next is on the technical side of things. So this is where the dev relations team is available to help you out. And we've got a few different ways. So first is our live community, which is our developer forums. And there's thousands of developers actively answering and asking questions on there. And it's a great place to go to see what other people have gone through, tried, and get some quick answers. If that doesn't work and you can't get the answers you're looking for, then we're always available to help you as well. So you can submit a support ticket, and we can help you. And then last thing, always good to know that things are up and running. So we have a platform status monitor, and it'll always let you know if there's any issues going on with any particular API.
That's awesome. So I hope the developer forum is really active, because if I get stuck, I definitely want to get some answers. So what else? You mentioned four stages. So what's the 4th one? Because ultimately I want to get some customers through your platform also. So how do I go to apps.com? I think that's what you mentioned earlier.
Yep. So you get through that process of building, and now it's time to submit to be listed on apps.com. And Intuit does a few things for you. First, we put you through a technical review, and the reason we do that is we spend a lot of time researching and working with customers and seeing how they sign up for applications. So we've come up with the best possible way to convert a customer when they sign up. So we've developed our requirements based on that, and we ask you to make sure you follow these requirements, and your customer will have the best experience and the highest conversion rate for your application when going through the sign-up process.
Okay.
The second part is the security review. So Intuit pays for each app on apps.com to go through a security review of their application, and it's free of charge to you, and it takes about a week or so, and we'll walk you through everything every step of the way. But we really want to make sure that before your app is available to thousands and potentially millions of customers, that it's as secure as possible. You're going to be handling customers' financial data. You're going to have their their data in your hands. So we want to make sure that your app is as secure as possible.
For sure, because security, that's one thing I don't want to cut any corners on, and I like it that it's free. For startups like me, that's tremendously helpful. So yeah, you took me through all these things, but I haven't spent time looking at apps.com. Do you want to just spend some time talking about apps.com? Show me apps.com.
Sure. So once you launch onto apps.com, you'll be exposed to the over 1 million QuickBooks Online paying customers, around 600,000 unique visitors every single month to apps.com. Okay. And this is where they come to find your applications. And we've got a few things that really help them find your app. One thing I mentioned before is the global markets that we support. So you can actually provide content for each global market, whatever country you want to support. And these are just the 5 that we've kind of put our marketing behind at the moment. But you can have content for each one of those areas and launch in that particular store for global customers.
But I can build out the app and then I can market in the other countries where QuickBooks Online works. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Additionally, you'll find trending now. These are the apps that are really starting to pick up right now. The newest is where you'll be listed when you get listed.
Okay.
Top rated is self-explanatory, and then featured and recommended here. This is where we get into the right for me experience, which Ketan talked about earlier. So we want to level the playing field, and if you're not a big application that can afford marketing budget, you use things like the apps.com experience and right for me to get your app in front of the people who it will best help. So we use machine learning, we use the data that's available in QuickBooks Online. We know what other applications people in your industry have signed up for, and we know what works for them. So we can actually make an appropriate recommendation for you, and it doesn't necessarily mean whoever's marketed the highest. It means the app that will work for you.
So quality definitely a good quality app can help.
Absolutely.
Okay. What else do you have? I saw a search box up there. Do you want to just tell me a bit more? How's that working?
So the search is what Ketan mentioned earlier. It's a targeted search. We also have a pretty significant number of categories here, and have a significant number of apps that have launched. We've more than doubled since last time we were here.
Okay. So that looks awesome, Jared. This has been super helpful. This is what I look for in a typical platform. I'm going to look for my SDKs. I'm going to look for the community to help me build out the app. It looks like I have everything I need. So thank you very much for spending the time. This was very helpful. So now, everyone, just switching back to being the product manager for the developer portal. One thing I would like to say is, spend some time, take a look at the developer portal, take a look at the apps.com side of things, because we've seen a lot of our developers become successful by choosing apps.com as one of the other channels they market at. And hopefully this was a very helpful demo for you all. If you have questions, Jared and I will definitely be here, so please do find us. And with that said, I'm looking for Laurie, who's up next. Okay, so we want to welcome Laurie on stage, and she's going to take it from here. Thank you.
Did you have a good lunch? Did you enjoy the mac and cheese, the comfort food? So I'm Lori Fraleigh. I head up the developer relations team for the Intuit Developer Group. And as part of doing that, I get to work with a lot of the developers on our platform. And so you heard from Ketan about what the platform is capable of. You saw from Jared and Mehul what it can do live. Now we're going to talk to some developers who've made and built apps on our platform. So at this time, I'd like to invite Colin, Shawn, Ben, and Matt up to the stage to join me. Let's give them a warm welcome. You can pull the chairs out a little bit. So glad to have you joining us today. Thank you so much. One of the first things I'd like to do is to have each of them introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their role within their company and what they do with the app, and then a little bit about what their app does as well, to give you some ideas of what's possible on the platform. So Ben, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I'm Director of Engineering at a company called Jobber, and we're a field service management software platform. So for field service companies, things like landscaping, maid service businesses, they use our software to run their businesses. And what we use the QuickBooks integration for there is taking the information that happens in our system. So as people running their businesses using our software, they're creating invoices, they're tracking time, taking payments, and then we can take all the information and push it into QuickBooks so that they're not doing some kind of manual data entry to get that stuff into their accounting. So that's what we use it for.
Thanks. Colin?
Yeah, I'm Colin Hewitt, the CEO of Float. Float is a cash flow forecasting application that hooks in directly to QuickBooks. We go in and pull all your bank transactions, bills and invoices, and then we build back a whole sort of forecast based on cash, so that you can have a real-time forecast going forward, but you can also drill right into all the figures and see exactly what cash transactions they represent. So yeah, it's a quite in detailed, pulling details, so we go quite deep into the API, and we don't push anything back into it. Yeah, we just get that information out.
Matt?
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm with SalesPad. Our app is SevenStage. It's an inventory management and sales order processing app. We also do some CRM. So with everything that we do there, we integrate pretty heavily with QuickBooks Online. We hit pretty much every single endpoint in the API, importing and exporting.
Great. And finally, Shawn.
Hi, I'm Shawn. I am Invoice Sherpa. So I'm a single owner operator app. And we do, or I do, accounts receivable management. So basically, we pull down all your invoices and automatically remind your customers that they need to pay you, and do some payment integration stuff. So we do basically invoice and contact integration with QuickBooks Online.
Thanks. So one of the things we heard about both on the main stage this morning and in the morning panel is about doing something you're really passionate about, following your passion, and you might hear no a lot before you get to yes and success. So I'm wondering if any of you can share a story with the people in the room about how you got started and what brought you to where you are today, to, you know, put that into real life perspective. Yeah.
So I'm just a software developer, but our company has a pretty great story where the owner of our company actually owns a distribution company, and he had pain points, and he talked to our president, and our president decided that he could help this man, and they got together, formed SalesPad, and built software that does distribution for Microsoft Dynamics and also QuickBooks Online.
Cool.
I can talk to that a little bit. So before I came to Jobber, I was an entrepreneur myself. I'm not one of the founders there. But I would describe myself as a serial entrepreneur, and I wouldn't describe myself as a successful serial entrepreneur, which pretty much means by definition I failed a lot. But it's just one of those things where it just kind of each time you take a swing at the bat, you fail a little bit less than you did the time before. And if you keep on doing that enough times, at some point you kind of transition from that failure into at least moderate success and then increasing levels of success. And at Jobber, it's been a long road to get here for the founders. It went from everything of the, like credit card debt and friends and family funding and, struggling to get your first customer, struggling to get your first 5 customers, failed attempts at trying to talk to investors, having no idea what they were doing, to the point now where we're I never know exactly what the number is because we're going quite quick, but somewhere around 35-person company, growing very quickly in terms of the size of the company, growing very quickly in terms of our customer base, and able to have a real impact. And like for us as a company, that's a big part of our culture, is that we work with small businesses and we help them be more successful, and that's a very real thing. It's very satisfying when we hear those stories coming back from our customers where they were able to keep their business running or just get their lives back, or be able to grow their businesses because of the software that we make, and that's a big part of why we do what we do.
So yeah, I started my company on my my kitchen table, and I really wanted, I was doing a full-time job, and I just really wanted to be an entrepreneur and start my own thing. So it was really great to work with QuickBooks because they gave me that opportunity to help me market my product in a way that I couldn't have done on my own, and I really got to focus on just building out the software. And I'm happy to say I quit my job here a couple months ago, so I can do this full time, and I couldn't do it without QuickBooks. So it's been a really awesome experience, and had an opportunity to really impact a lot of small businesses and hit a pain point that was really a big deal. I just had a guy 5 minutes ago before I came in here tell me how great I am, and he's going to leave me a 5-star review because I've totally changed his life. And it's experiences like that which really sort of get me up in the morning and get me excited. So I'm just happy to be here.
To expand on that, Shawn, can you talk a little bit about how you got the idea?
Oh,
while you
yeah,
had
sure.
another
So
full-time
I started
job?
with a really terrible idea. Well, it's not terrible, but appointment reminders like your dentist or whatever. And anyways, just trying to do that was so terribly difficult because there's all these little sort of disparate software systems. So anyways, I was at dinner. My wife's a CPA. She had some CPA friends there, and I was sort of bemoaning how terrible this experience was and how I was going to fail. And they said, well, why don't you like remind people to pay bills, because people always don't pay their bills, and cash flow is a big deal for our clients, and what do you think about that? So I was like, well, I'm going to fail anyways at this appointment thing, so I might as well try it. And it worked great. So I was like, sweet, this is awesome. So it was kind of a fun way to fall into it.
Really important lesson, not to give up. It may seem stupid at first, but
just keep pivoting as much as you can, because a lot of the stuff, you build up some capital. Like even if tomorrow my business goes down, like all the QuickBooks integration is super hard to do, initially, and when you get it up and running, it becomes really valuable as an asset, and there's lots of other ways to integrate and lots of other problems to solve. And also, once you get out there with an idea, even if it's half-baked and not very good, you start to hear from people, and you hear about other pain points, and they'll tell you other things you would have otherwise never heard. It just keeps you rolling down the road.
Colin?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I had a business, digital agency, so we were building a lot of software products for people who kept running out of money. We realized that we needed to get our financial and management sorted, and we started using online accounting, a very small UK-based platform called FreeAgent. Basically, we realized we had an opportunity, but we built it for FreeAgent, and we went out to try and get investors, and they said the market's too small. I think they had about 5,000 users at the time, but we really believed that online accounting was the way forward, and that everybody's going to move to it. So really, we just kept going regardless of what people were telling us that the market was too small, knowing that there was going to be a bigger opportunity. And then all of a sudden, QuickBooks picks up the cloud. They've got 1 million customers. Everything changes. So, it's really interesting. I think the opportunity now with 1 million growing customer base for actually getting an app, quickly launching it into that marketplace is huge. So, we got a hard run at the beginning, and all of a sudden now it's just opened up for us. It's great.
Okay. One of the things Jared mentioned earlier was the different resources available, including different language-based SDKs. Can you share a little bit with the audience about the programming language of choice for your application, what resources you're leveraging, whether they're Intuit-based resources or third-party resources that are available?
Yeah, I can talk to that a bit. So our application is written on Ruby on Rails, so in the Ruby language. And there's no Intuit supported library for Ruby. There is a community-based one called QuickBooks Ruby, which has come along. But personally, I would recommend just doing a direct integration. Like the hardest part of getting going is probably going to still be the OAuth side, especially like I would love to see some more work from Intuit on some more modern languages like Python, Ruby, Node, providing some better SDKs and example code around that as opposed to relying on the community, because certainly more recent developers, those are the tech stacks they're probably going to be on. But on the Ruby side, like once you actually start going against the API, like there's one of the good things about the QuickBooks API is it's at least fairly consistent in terms of how the data is structured and how it works. So once you start to solve the problems for a few models, even though there's like, I don't even know what the actual count is, something like 40 different endpoints or something against the API, they'll be fairly consistent in terms of how they behave. So you kind of can write that code and then re-leverage that code against the other endpoints. And the advantage of doing that directly instead of using SDKs, you just have a lot more control over how it's going to behave when you start hitting edge cases or failure conditions.
Yeah, we're Rails as well, but what we find over the lifetime of the app is that we've moved more and more into JavaScript on the front end. So very quickly, it went from sort of 50-50, now it's probably almost 70-30 on the JavaScript side. So we had to get a framework, so we started using Backbone. Now we're actually in the process of moving everything onto React, which everybody seems to love. It's been, so I think we used the QuickBooks a Ruby gem, which is really we've kind of been contributing to as well. So as long as that keeps going, but like you said, it'd be great to see some SDK support for Ruby.
We're on CSharp. The SDK is very robust on CSharp. I highly recommend it. Once again, the OAuth stuff, developers probably shouldn't have to do nearly as much in there. I think that's a pretty common complaint. But other than that, it was very easy to pick up and use, and we've really enjoyed using it and haven't run into any issues at all.
Awesome.
I'm using Python, and I just hand-rolled all of it. So, and yeah, OAuth 2 would be awesome.
Yeah, so a lot of great ways to get started with the platform. And if any of you have any specific questions about any of the languages, you can hit the panelists up at the end. So, talked a lot about building the app and the power of QuickBooks. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. Like, you've got an app, it's launched, you have customers. What do you wish you'd known when you were just getting started with the QuickBooks API and planning out your integration? What do you wish someone had told you? Are we going to be here for the next 5 hours?
I mean, so we don't, like, the biggest mistake we made was writing a desktop application first and then realizing that was a big mistake. So don't write a desktop application. You come here, like QuickBooks Online is where it's going to be. Write a QuickBooks Online integration and make sure that you fix, right, some customers' needs. That's the best thing to do, is find a customer who you can be really tight with and fix their need. Hopefully that gave you guys some time to think.
Yeah, I can, like, one of the things that was, we integrated with QuickBooks originally 3 or 4 years ago when it was Web Connector for QBD, and the integration of QuickBooks Online through the API came later. And I wouldn't recommend doing that. Like, QuickBooks Online through the API is pretty good. QuickBooks Desktop's being sunset anyways, and you'll just have less headaches dealing with QuickBooks Online. It behaves a lot more sanely. The other thing is, I wasn't around when the initial work was done. But something like whenever you're writing against a third-party system, and like we do kind of like two-way sync between the systems, which is kind of inherently hard. But one of the things that you should assume, no matter how good the API is that you're talking to, is view it as a hostile system and like engineer your systems to be somewhat self-recoverable. Because otherwise, like if you assume that everything's going to work perfectly and that things are going to like map properly all the time, you're going to be fighting against it all the time. So when you're engineering the code, you're far better off to make initial investment, kind of like assuming things are going to go, not necessarily work right all the time, and design your systems to be able to handle that. And it's a more efficient place to make that investment up front than trying to like constantly deal with every little edge case and get everything working 100% correctly down the road.
Great advice.
I think for me, on the product side, what you see really often is people come up with an idea and they really overspec it. And I think every time I sit down and say, what is the simplest way? What can you strip out to just make this before you put this in front of a customer, have it do, if you think it's going to do 3 things, get it to do 1 thing. Because once you get that customer point, it's like the classic line, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And that's what it's like when you start getting customers and there's all these extra things, all these extra bugs. It's really easy for me in product to say, hey guys, can we just add this? It'll be really easy because I really want it to be there for a personal pride thing. And then actually it comes back again and again and it bites us because it wasn't a core thing. So yeah, if you can simplify and just, even if it's embarrassingly simple, that's a really good way to start, because there's all that other experience that you have to think about building on the first time use that is actually so much more important. And getting somebody through to a paying customer and then starting to add features is probably I wish we'd kind of simplified more at the beginning, because we've got all this stuff now that we have to support now that it's in the wild, and it actually slows the innovation. So yeah, simplify would be my advice.
Great.
I'd say be iterative, but don't be ugly. So, if you think about your audience, I think what's common with engineers is we're not really necessarily design-driven people, and something that we did early on, I think that benefited us was I went to Theme Forest, and I paid like $20 for a halfway decent theme, and I think it resonated because when I put the app in the market, it wasn't hideously ugly, and it was simple. It did one thing, and it gave me an opportunity to test and I think get a fair shake from the customer who wasn't immediately turned off by what I would have otherwise put up there. But it was just one thing, and it was really easy to see, does this actually make a difference? Does anyone care? Because otherwise, there's no reason to keep going if you're not really solving a pain point. So be iterative for sure. Be really simple, but take some time to make it look palatable.
I have 2 very specific examples of things I would have wished to known before I started working with the API. The shipping amount on a sales document is a line. It looks like it's in the header. It's a line. It took me so long to figure out. And then the other thing is that in order to get on apps.com, you have to refresh your OAuth tokens. Intuit actually has a way to test that. I don't know the URL off the top of my head, but there's a lot of people who just simply don't know that there's a way to test your OAuth tokens and set timeouts on it. And hopefully you'll remember this and be able to search for it later.
So we need to make that a little bit more upfront.
I just waited a year and saw if my code worked.
Test up front, test in the field. Two different approaches. So the four of you represent a very global audience from all around the world. What would you say to people in the room as they think about developing for a global audience and supporting customers not just in your home country? How did you think about that? Did you launch everywhere at all at once, in one geography first and then expand? What were some key considerations in that space?
Yeah, I'd say don't support a global audience. Like we do. I forget the exact number, but we're in a very large number of countries, and supporting QuickBooks in a very large number of countries. And there's some other examples of companies in the App Store that are very focused on the U.S. market initially, and I think that's a good call. There is some behavioral differences between QBO US and QBO Global, which isn't always clearly documented in the documentation and can kind of send you down some windy roads unexpectedly sometimes. So that's a little bit dangerous if you write something like building it for QBO US and expect it to work against global. There's definitely hidden costs there. And the US market's a really large market. So there's definitely some advantages just to focusing on that initially, especially if you're US based. Just like time zones for support and things like that are easier. Like I said, a company of, again, about just under 40 people, we're just starting to look at things like really broadening our success support hours, and getting into multiple shifts to support different time zones, and like that there's a lot of operational overhead that comes with trying to serve a global market aside from just a product. Like even though with the internet and the global economy, there's still just a lot of logistics involved in being in markets, aside from just having your tech available in other markets. So be aware of that.
We counted up recently. We have over 100 countries now, but I think most of them are just like one customer. But it was that felt like quite a milestone. And one sort of little anecdote, being from the UK, the amount of applications we would try, and they would have like a funky symbol when it should have been a British pound sign instead, because they're just thinking dollars, and it always looked really buggy. And what we did was, because I guess there's loads of currency symbols and not everybody seems to be able to support them somehow. We just took the currency symbols out and everybody just automatically thinks in their own language. So nobody's actually ever said to us, what currency is this, even though we support multi-currency. But it's kind of like, it's made our life a lot simpler. But I think, seriously, I think there is multi-language things to consider. We're actually now thinking about supporting languages other than English, and it's going to be, so that's going to be a bit of a rewrite because we didn't think that with that in mind. So if you are thinking about that, like French, for example, where QuickBooks are going to be going, focusing on, I think that's a really worthwhile thing to put in right from the beginning. And then there's just localization stuff like, we in the UK we use the term fortnightly, so then we're trying to work out, do we say every 2 weeks or, what, all that kind of stuff, which I guess we'll need to kind of even sort of translate from UK to the US. So there's things like that to bear in mind too.
So SevenStage isn't officially rolled out yet. We're only rolling it out to the US mostly because of we don't want to outsource our support. We want to be able to support all of our customers in-house, and it's definitely a challenge to try and support time zones that are 12 hours behind you, 13 hours behind you. That being said, we've had many people who stopped by our booth and said, primarily, when is this going to be available in India? It's a huge market right now.
I went global right from the start, and I had huge success with it. It does also mean that I answer lots of chats at like 11 o'clock at night on my kitchen table from Australia. So there's definitely a trade-off there. But I would say, there are two different types of apps. I think there are apps that sort of stand alone, and there are apps that really complement or extend QuickBooks. So if you're an app that stands alone, you probably have so much to do in your core market. It probably doesn't make sense necessarily to go global right away. But if you're, something that's complementing QuickBooks, I think going global as fast as possible is great. The other thing, right, is the biggest competitor to QuickBooks, of course, is Xero, and then QuickBooks is putting a lot of investment in those core markets to try to expand its market share. And I will say, from my experience, that the users in Australia and New Zealand, for example, are extremely app excited. They love apps. They get it. They know they're part of their business. They're quick adopters. Canada is really great at adopting apps. So to ignore those markets if you're looking for customers and expansion, I think is a mistake. So you just sort of have to weigh the pros and cons and decide what works best for you.
Thanks for sharing the different experiences. I think there's a lot to consider. So I got the we're running out of time signal. So I think what we've learned today is that you really need to start with a great idea. And it may not seem great at first, but if you keep iterating, if you keep pivoting, eventually it will be great. And listen to feedback. Get the feedback. Make sure you're solving a real pain point. Lots of different ways to approach it, many different technologies.
Oh yeah, can I throw in one quick tip? So what I did is as soon as my app launched, I looked up the nearest pro advisor in my city, and I made her meet me at a Starbucks, and I paid her to tell me how crappy my app was. Highly recommend that. That was good money. That latte was just cheap, and she gave me an immense amount of feedback. Remember, these people built into it, so they can also help build you. So pro advisors are great, so I just want to mention that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because that's what you get to do here at QuickBooks Connect. You get to connect with your small business customers, with your pro advisor friends. They will become your friends, and who will recommend you to those small businesses. So once again, please thank Colin, Shawn, Ben, and Matt.